Would you like to accelerate your career and reach your full potential in just minutes a day? Welcome to the LEADx Show with New York Times best-selling author and Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Kevin Kruse.
So what's your brain junk? Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Kruse. Welcome to the LEADx Show. I hope you're telling your friends that the LEADx podcast is the smartest way they can start their day. And I also hope you've checked out leadx.org. Right there on our homepage, we offer a new free online course every single day. Authentic leadership, delegation, employee engagement, productivity, email management, and more. And today on the show, we're going to be talking not just about brain junk, but the imposter syndrome and even how do you get to become a Guinness Book of World Records holder. But first, today's tip is fight or flight or freeze. It used to happen in high school to me during math tests. And now it does happen sometimes, usually when clients are waiting, podcasts need to be recorded, I've got screaming kids in the background, and there's no time to eat a meal. I get so overwhelmed that I literally freeze. Now, sometimes I feel hot, which is kind of ironic. So I'm freezing with a hot flash. Anyway, it's like I get hypnotized. I get shut down. I could probably just put my head down and go to sleep. And I used to just think it was me that had this sort of weird reaction sometimes. But I've learned that classic fight or flight response, which is officially called the acute stress response, actually has a third component, which is freeze. So our bodies, in response to a perceived threat, our nervous system dumps hormones so that we can take action and fight back or take action and flee. But there's a third response which kicks in when we feel it's hopeless. There's no point in fighting, and we're not going to be able to get away when we flee. So then all we do is freeze. Now, evolutionarily speaking, playing dead wasn't a bad idea. And psychologically speaking, disassociating from something like a physical assault, it's actually a coping mechanism. But of course, stress these days most often occurs from just overwhelming amounts to do. And we freeze when we feel we can't not do it, but it's also impossible to get it all done. The first step in dealing with stress and anxiety is to be mindful of it, to know what's going on with our mind and body. We need to pause and observe it. So we don't just fight or take flight. Realize that in response to stress, sometimes you freeze. Our guest today is an executive coach, author, and speaker who previously broke the Guinness World Record title for the longest uninterrupted webcast. Now she's the host of Two Questions TV, that's twoquestions.tv, a show where she dives deep and gleans wisdom from her guests on a variety of topics in just 2 questions. She's the founder of Business in Blue Jeans and author of a book of the same name. My guest is Susan Baroncini-Moe. Susan, welcome to the show.
Oh, Kevin, thanks for having me.
Now, I'm excited to talk more specifically about your book and your company, but it's a tradition. I always start by asking our guests to tell us a story about a time when you failed at something, because I'm selfish and I want to learn from your failure.
So get us right out of the gate being vulnerable,
Oh,
right?
yeah, right out of the gate. You know how I roll.
Oh, my gosh. Well, all right. I failed a lot. I think probably my biggest failure was a failure that was wrapped in success. And that sounds like it's going to be a good story, but no. One of my very early ventures was a nonprofit company, and I founded it after my mom's first bout with breast cancer. And when she lost her hair, I was taking a knitting class at the time, so I knitted her this very nice soft hat, and she loved it. And I thought, I bet I could do this for other people. And I knitted hats for friends who had cancer, and I then started a nonprofit company, and I contacted knitting circles and groups and asked them, would they be willing to knit hats for my people? And I contacted hat companies and asked them to donate hats. And then I put up a little website where people could go and fill out a form and have a hat sent to someone they love, and a little note with it. I was fully funding it myself. I had a full-time job, and I had a mailbox at the post office, and everything was going, normally, growing slowly. The internet was So you could get found pretty easily, but there were just a few requests here and there. And every once in a while, a bunch of hats would come. And then all of a sudden, I started getting a bunch of donations, these really big boxes. And I started getting these envelopes and forms. And I would log into my email. There would be like tons of requests. And
Right.
I had to have a room in my apartment just for the hats. And I didn't know what was going on. But one day my mom called me and she was at her hairdresser salon. I don't know what she was having done. It was a little while later, I guess. And she said, she was sitting under the dryer. And so her hair must have started growing back by then. And she said, I'm sitting under the dryer and I'm reading this magazine. And it was a big national publication. She said, did you know that your company is featured?
Oh, wow.
I had no idea. Well, to make a long story short, I was very young. I was very overwhelmed. And I didn't have any of the tools or skills or knowledge that I have now to handle success when it comes too fast. And what I've learned from that experience was to never be afraid to ask for help and to be prepared for growth really anytime, anywhere. You never know when success will come. And when it does, you have to be ready for it. Now, no matter what I do now, I set up my systems very quickly so things don't get out of control when things start to go well. And I've also learned that there are times when you have to forgive yourself when you have failed. I probably don't have to say that the guilt associated when you fail is pretty big, but when you fail breast cancer patients, it's like nothing else. Like that's the worst. And I feel horrible talking about it. It's actually, I don't share this story very much. It's very deeply personal to me. And I did a lot of good with that company, but I also failed pretty big. And it still kind of pains me to talk about it.
Well, so. I appreciate the vulnerability and you sharing that story. And obviously you did a lot of good, while you were running your nonprofit. And that lesson can apply to any of us in any part of life, though, because it's happened to me. And I know a lot of people where it's like you hope to hit it big and you want to be huge and you want everybody to discover your website, your company, your product. And if you're not set up to handle it and boom, it hits, that can take you down just as much as having no customers can take you down.
Oh yeah. Be ready.
Right. You got to be ready for it at the right time.
I always say it's the problem you want to have. It's a good problem to have to
right.
be known, to have, too much business coming in, but it's still a problem that has to be dealt with.
Yeah, that's right. And I've learned it too. And even in, with LEADx and everything, I'm purposely doing things slowly because I'm just making sure whether it's the people in place, the systems in place that, you got to be ready for it when the people come. And
your systems are dead on. Your systems are amazing.
Yeah.
They are.
I batch my podcasts. I think I'm doing 17 from yesterday to today. And, what it's very nice to hear is, my producer, Jackie Gendrico, I'll give her a shout out. I hear this over and over again. It's like, oh, Jackie walked me through it. Oh, Jackie's been great and all that. And so, yeah, definitely none of this would happen without the systems and the people in place.
Absolutely.
So, in the spirit of lessons learned and advice, you've had obviously a successful and varied career. What's some general advice you would give to a young professional who, wants to stand out and get ahead, even if she might not know exactly what her long-term plan is?
Well, I'll tell you what I tell my clients who are young professionals who want to get an edge. One of the first things that I do is to pass along a piece of wisdom that was passed along to me by someone I greatly respect, Larry Winget. And if you haven't read Larry's books, you should. So Larry says in, I think, every single book he's ever written, and he said it to me too, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And in my book, I said, and I also add, or faster and better than you promised.
Right.
Because you've got to be able to stand by your word. So work hard, stand out by looking for a need and filling that need. Be willing to ask for advice, be confident, but never be arrogant. And never, ever stop listening and learning. When you're young, I think often you think, I know it all. I've got this. But that's the one time when you don't know it all and you don't have it. And it's the most important time to respect those who have come before you and succeeded. And to learn as much as you can from them. And a very smart leader will learn from you too, but you have so much more to learn from them than they do you. So confidence, but never arrogance. Look for where you can fill a need and work hard to fill it. And stand by your word. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, or faster and better than you said you would. And read like crazy. Learn about body language and influence. Those things will serve you for a lifetime. That's a lot of advice in one little.
Yeah, no, all good stuff. And I always say, leaders are readers. And I tell the LEADx listeners, that's what this show is really all about, is lifelong learning. And I think, it's the world is moving faster than ever before. Technology is growing and changing exponentially. So it's not an option. It's like learn or be left behind, I think.
Agree.
Now, here's a fun one, Susan. Now, before we talk about business in blue jeans, I'm doing some homework for this interview, and I'm like, what? She had won the Guinness World Record for longest webcast or something like that? What is that all about?
Oh, I like to celebrate birthdays in a big way. And I was turning 40 and I wanted to do something big to celebrate. And I also wanted to do something with all of the wonderful personalities and people that I'd met along the way of doing my own podcast, which is now defunct and turned into something else. But for some reason, I got it in my head that I wanted to break a world record. And I thought, gee, what kind of record could I break? I'm not super athletic. I'm not super fast. And I have a terrible memory. But I can corral people like you don't even know. and like you, Kevin, I seem to be able to get people to talk to me. And I'm a pretty good project manager. So the idea was really born out of I'm ready to do something big. But it's a funny thing because you can break a record, and it was an exercise in project management and risk management. But really, breaking a world record is a wonderful lesson in impermanence because you have to know that someone will be waiting in the wings to break your record. So to that victory, the success is kind of fleeting. Now, fortunately, I held my record for 2.5 years, and it was really cool. It's still cool. But I have seen world record holders who lost their records and were a little broken afterward because that was what they built their name on. And I decided I wasn't going to do that. Like the record's cool and I enjoyed it and it was lots of fun and it's in my bio, but it's not the only thing I've done, and I've definitely got more ahead of me.
Well, yeah, I guess it's good not to tie your identity too much into being a Guinness World Record holder. But what was it for? You created the longest live video stream or webcast or something?
World's longest uninterrupted live webcast. And then after that, someone broke the record with an audio webcast. Uh-huh. And so I petitioned Guinness and said, a video webcast, which is what we did, is quite different from an audio stream. So why don't you split the records? And so then I held the world's longest uninterrupted live video webcast.
How long was it for?
36 hours and 23 seconds. But to be fair, it wasn't just me talking. It wasn't just me. I had wonderful people who helped me, and many, many names you would know and recognize, wonderful authors. And, some of those people are on my new show and have come to support me on that. And so we're bonded in that moment.
and I'm just curious, you can tell I'm like fascinated by how they did it. So like if the technology went down, like we're talking on Skype right now, if Skype all of a sudden went down, boom, would your record be over? Or it was like you as long as you could keep it going like really quickly, it didn't matter.
It's gone.
It's gone.
If the technology fails you, it's over. But we had a lot, like, how you have plan B? I had plan Z, like all the way through the alphabet. Here's what we're going to do.
Because I was going to say that would be the part, like, even if you could find out, like, you're not going to sleep or you're going to sleep during these hours and when are the bathroom breaks and
I did sleep.
Who's the 40 friends that you enrolled to come and do this with you? It's like, I'd be like, great, I've got all that lined up. And I would be at, like, if I wanted to break your record, I'd be at hour 35 and then like the internet would go down to my house. And I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, it's tricky, but you choose your partners wisely. And you choose your technology carefully and you plan.
Very cool. Very cool. I think it's still cool. So your book is Business in Blue Jeans. Who's this book for? What's the big message?
Business in Blue Jeans is for anyone who wants to start or grow a business. It's a pretty big range, to be honest with you. And I did that. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I did that intentionally. So I get letters from, 15-year-olds in Malaysia who say, I'm selling baked goods at my school, and, just really fun little things that they read my book and they're fans. And so I mentor them a little bit. But more than that, I hear a lot from owners of small businesses, but large small businesses, like multi-million-dollar businesses. The book helped them to go back to basics and shore up their success but making sure they had all the right pieces in place to help them to continue to succeed. And it seems like a book that would be for sort of the basics, but there's a reason behind that. There's a strong intent. And the subtitle is How to Have a Successful Business on Your Own Terms in Your Own Style. And it's not about what you wear. It's not about wearing jeans. I wear jeans and yoga pants and sometimes pajamas. Yeah, but it's not how to start a business, it's how to grow. So you can read this book anywhere that you are in your journey, and you may go, oh, that's so basic, but there's a good chance you need to hear it again. Because anytime you approach something with, oh, I know that already, you're not open to learning, you're not open to hearing. And so the book is intentional and definitely helps people to get back to that foundational place. And the big message is that anyone can start a business and grow it to success if you have the right tools, strategies, and systems in place. And hopefully Business in Blue Jeans provides a lot of those in a very practical way.
So give me an example from your book or from one of your clients, like a specific example, like how has someone implemented some tools or systems to help them launch quickly or to sustain the success they're already having?
So when I wrote the book, my business was very different than it is now. Primarily, we, kind of did everything for business owners. So we would look at a business and say, okay, you need a new website, we'll do that. You need new social media platforms, we'll do that. You need this marketing strategy, we'll do that. But over time, I realized that it's actually the first chapter that is the most important. And I knew that when I wrote the book, that the brain junk is the most important piece. And really that's at the heart of most of my training is in helping people to contend with their brain junk. And that's all those, little voices in our heads, the ideas that we have about what we're capable of, what we can achieve, how big our businesses can grow, and what we want in life. And so I've had quite a few clients who have read the book and come to me and said, it's that chapter that I need the most help with. Like I can do sales, I can do marketing, I can do branding. That's the easy part. I can hire people to do that, but I need someone to get inside my head and do the deep work with me and help me to figure out why this is happening or why that is happening or why I'm always afraid that next client won't come. And so that's the work that I do now is, we've kind of let go of all the other work. There are lots of wonderful companies that do all those other things for you. But the biggest thing that I do now is to help executives and business owners to get rid of their brain junk and to move forward in their business without fear and hesitation and uncertainty.
So, when it comes, I like that term brain junk, like all this stuff that's in our head. Do you see common patterns? Like, is it more about overconfidence or imposter syndrome or stress or like, what do you see commonly out there?
Overconfidence is a rarity. Usually when you see it in people is masking imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is rampant. And I find that the more successful people are and the smarter they are, the more they have it. And there's a lot of fear in business owners around what if that next customer doesn't walk through the door? What if that next client doesn't come? What if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I, can't keep people working? Because, a lot of us employ people and we have, mouths to feed. So, I think those are the big fears that come up again and again. And the other, thing is the sort of general soft skills category where, people just need some help in communication and really leading effectively, learning how to not micromanage, how to delegate effectively. So, yeah.
Any tips on those, fears? Like, is it, if I'm fearing that I'm going to lose investors' money, I'm fearing that this isn't going to work out, I'm going to have to lay people off. Like, is it more about just acknowledging that and managing it, or are there other ways to deal with it?
Well, both, Kevin, because in some respects, we have this idea we're not supposed to be scared. And when we look at other people and we see how confident they seem, we think they're not scared. But that's all a facade. It's a lie. We're all scared. Everyone's scared of something. And so, courage isn't really the absence of fear. It's the mastery of fear. And so in some ways, we can manage that fear in a really intelligent way, in a really an in-depth way by doing the work. But in other ways, we can erase the fear just by doing some of that deep coaching work. So it's kind of both. It's getting rid of what we can and managing the rest.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I worked for a guy for a few years who he did not fear going bankrupt and having to fire hundreds of people. He was the founder, CEO. And he told me, actually, he says, Kevin, he said, this is America. What's the worst that happens? Everyone goes and gets unemployment, or worse than that, they get welfare. Like the poorest people in this country are so much better off than the worst people, in other places. Like it wouldn't be so bad if we all lost our jobs. And he took that company to the brink of bankruptcy, several times. And so hearing you say that everybody, most normal people would have, that fear. And it's like, that made me nervous working for him. It's like, I want my boss to fear that she might have to let me go someday, or fear that she's going to let her investors down, because that means you care, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It's a little scary if you don't care about those things.
Well, I think that part of the job of a good leader is to inspire confidence in their team. And so you don't want to be saying, I don't care if you lose your jobs. That makes your team nervous, like it made you nervous.
Right.
And you want to be instilling and inspiring confidence and encouraging them to do more, because you're willing to go to bat for them. You're willing to do more for them. Great leaders care about whether or not they're going to lose. Yeah, I think the great leaders care about whether or not they're going to lose jobs.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin's former boss.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to say it, but actually it does matter. It does matter. And I think for all of us who, as individual contributors, or when we are joining a company, I think we should join with a realistic perspective. If I'm joining a startup, there could be more risk there than a more established company. These days, I think everybody's at risk. The days of working for one employer or IBM not doing layoffs, those days are gone. But still, you should probably know what you're getting into as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little sad, though. I think that was a special relationship, and I think companies that remember that and remember that time and want to keep employees and do a lot to retain them do well. And I think employees who want to stay with a company, I think we all kind of still wish for that.
Right.
It's just different now. And I think it doesn't have to be.
I think, employee engagement sort of took a big nosedive. It's about, now it's almost 40 plus years ago, and has never really recovered. And it sort of coincides with this shift where all of a sudden, around the world, nobody's job was secure anymore. And not only could you be laid off, but even if you were in a good job, the idea of, pensions and things all went away. And we now, people, this is what gets me angry is a lot of people are, bashing millennials and making these generalizations. And one of the ones I hear a lot is about millennials, have no loyalty and they'll job hop. They're going to have 1 million jobs by the time they're 40. And it's like, well, they've seen you fire their parents over and over again.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. They're going to, I think to your point, Susan, if you care, a lot about your employees, then you're going to do things that hopefully they're going to want to stay. You're going to help them to grow. You're going to show appreciation. You're going to give them that future vision. You're going to bring meaning to their work. And if you don't, then shame on you if they go somewhere else.
Exactly. Well, and that's your area, isn't it? You know a ton about that.
I pretend to, imposter syndrome, it's like, when are they going to discover me, Susan? I don't actually know anything about that stuff.
Kevin, don't make me coach you right now.
I could probably do an entire season of episodes of me just being on a couch and having all my guests just, shrink me. I'm sure it would be good. But anyway, so here's, I like to end our episodes with something really actionable. I'm always challenging our listeners, like, go do one little thing, make yourself 1% better today. And we've touched on a lot of things, already, but is there something specific you would want us to try or to think about or to take action on today?
Read a book.
Good.
Go read a book. Read a really good book. And it doesn't even matter. It can be fiction, it can be nonfiction, but do something to get you away from the screens and onto the printed word. I am a big fan of actual tangible books. And I encourage everyone, just read a book.
Love it. Got any favorites you've been reading lately?
Yes.
Putting you on the spot?
No, that's okay. I've read a lot lately. My favorite book recently was The Longevity Plan by Dr. John Day. And it's about this community in China where they have the most dense population of centenarians on the planet.
Wow.
And it's a wonderful book.
So I bet you've already adopted their behaviors and diets. What are the highlights?
You know what, Kevin, I will tell you, I interviewed him for my show and I got to tell him that I had tried this soup, the longevity soup, because I read the book and I was inspired. And so I went out and bought the ingredients and I made the soup. I thought it was going to be terrible. It was a funny color, but it was all right.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely read that book. I like to tell people that my diet is about 90% vegan and 10% Super Bowl party. So I'm not pure on my diet by any means.
It's true. But you will love that book then. You will love that book.
All right. No, I'm going to hop on Amazon. So Susan, how can our listeners find out more about you, your company, and your own book?
It depends on what you're looking for. My book you can find on Amazon and all major bookstores, and some minor ones. But you can always go to my website, businessandbluejeans.com, to find me. If you're looking for an executive coach, Baroncini-Moe.com. But as you know, I'm doing a new YouTube show called 2 Questions TV, which is all about success in all facets of your life, including business and leadership, career, personal development, health development, and stuff like that. And the shtick is I'm only allowed to ask 2 questions. And you're coming on the show I'm interviewing you this next week. I'm not sure exactly what your date is,
right.
But if you want to find that, folks can just go to 2questions.tv, just the number 2 questions.tv, and type that in as the domain name. It'll take you right to the show.
That's great, Susan. I encourage our listeners to check that out. I've been like my teenage kids, spending more time on YouTube, and I think the world is moving to a video format. So I was very intrigued by 2questions.tv, and I'm going to spend more time on it myself. So until then, listeners, take action, read a book, and follow up with Susan. All of those links, of course, will be in the show notes. Susan, thanks for coming on to the LEADx Show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was so much fun.
Friends, before we go, remember, at LEADx, we're on a mission to give free leadership training and professional development to everyone, anywhere, at any time. Visit leadx.org, that is, to check out our course of the day. Or visit leadx.org/Branson to download our free ebook, Richard Branson's 7 Secrets to Leadership. And please take one quick minute. Go to leadx.org/subscribe to subscribe and leave a rating for this podcast, the LEADx Leadership Show. leadx.org/subscribe. Until next time, remember, you have incredible influence on those around you, your family, your team at work, your community. We all need you to lead mindfully. How will you lead today?